Hi all. I'm re-recording this session today because today's recording had failed, but I'll try and cover all the concepts that we discussed. And in case if I miss anything, I'll try and cover those in the future sessions. Okay, so this is going to be just me recording the session. We won't have any of the other attendees, but I'll ensure that whatever conversations that we had, I'll try and cover those to my best ability. Let's kickstart our today's discussion with the question number 31. Okay, as you can see over here, it's a non-profit organ program. Again, whether profit or non-profit, you'll have a finance element, you'll have a non-finance element. There would be a lot of elements that we'll have in there. Now, what we are saying over here is this is a key benefit over here that it's the key focus is on improving literacy among the at-risk youth. Okay, however, what we are seeing is it's kind of hitting into a bit of a challenge wherein the donor income in the first year, okay, we are seeing that we are not able to see an increase in the donor income. And the question is kind of coming into how the program manager is going to report the benefits realization. Okay, and let's go from bottom to up. Delay reporting until financials benefits accrue. See, this is not the right thing to do it. There is a challenge around benefits realization, but that doesn't mean that we'll stop reporting it because the governance itself puts in the appropriate guidelines in place around how we should be kind of reporting the benefits. So D is wrong. Only report financial outcomes. Again, the question over here is not reporting one outcome versus the other. So whenever you see in a program in a question when it says only do one thing or only do the other thing, that's wrong. And again, conceptually, when you really look into it, it's only talking about financial outcomes over here, but the key focus over here is also the non-financial ones, as noted here earlier. Answer A, classify the program as unsuccessful due to lack of income impact. This could be the thing that you might arrive into later, but the question over here is how the program manager should report the benefits realization. Okay, it's not about taking a particular action, it's more around how he should report the benefits realization. So, hence, A is wrong. Which brings us to the correct answer is B, wherein we are saying yes, use qualitative and quantitative non financial metrics. Remember, KPIs are very, very important for your benefits. See around how you can demonstrate the value to the stakeholders so that the stakeholders do understand that yes, there is a delay, but yes, the program is still feasible because it's still kind of demonstrating value. So, hence, B is the correct answer. The explanation for the same is over here. You can pause the screen, read through it, and come back to it later. For now, I'll move on to question 32. Over here, we are saying that there is an enterprise-wide technology program which is ready for rollout. Uh, Business units are at various levels of readiness for adoption. And here we are saying is how should the program manager facilitate successful transition and sustainment? Okay, so the point over here is how should a transition and sustainment be managed? Okay, the responses to that, again, let's go bottom to up, saying deliver only technical documentation. See, technical documentation is one of the critical parts of the successful transition and then obviously continuing sustainment. But saying that only do technical documentation and nothing else, again, not the right answer. Leave transition planning to each business unit. Okay, business units are more focused towards executing the sustainment plan and not the transition plan. The transition plan is still the responsibility of the program manager. Okay, so hence this is going to be the wrong answer. Mandate immediate cutover for all units. Well, again, the point over here is you have to ensure a successful transition. Okay, using stronger language terms like mandate, force, close without any conversations is the wrong answer. So hence B is also incorrect. Which brings us to the correct answer, which is develop a phase supported transition plan. Okay, include tailored training. One of the key things about transition plan is also tailored training. Feedback loops, so that if there is any further things required on the tailored trainings and other things, we can continuously have those feedbacks and stage rollouts. Okay, so this is the correct answer. Now, one of the questions that I had earlier was, let's just say if I remove the word transition from here, okay, would the answer still be the same? Okay, yes, the answer will still be the same because one of the key things for sustainment is ensuring that you have a robust transition plan. And as discussed earlier, the key person or the key responsibility of the program manager is to create the transition plan. And for preparing the transition plan, again, there could be two types of transition plan. One would be a transition plan at a project level, okay, which might happen throughout the program level journey as and when those projects are signed up for completion. And then you might also have program level, which is the program level transition only comes into the program closure phase. Okay, so the answer to that is A. Okay, again, you can pause to read this. I'll move on to question 33. Now, over here, we are saying halfway through the program delivery, organization strategic priorities change. Original plan was designed for legacy goals. What is the best program management response? Okay, now this kind of question I've constructed that to highlight that you need to be mindful as to which phase you are in. Over here, you are in the program delivery phase. Okay, and the strategic priorities have changed. So you are no longer focused around delivering on the older strategies, right? You'll have to look into the newer goals, newer strategies so that you can really proceed accordingly. Okay, now this time let's go top to down. Okay, so we have A, continue as planned since the plans were previously approved. Now, one thing remember with program management and PGMP in particular, if a strategy change, you have to kind of change according to the strategy. So A is straight out a wrong answer. Terminate the program immediately. Too soon to say this. I think we need to kind of do an analysis. We need to kind of come to a conclusion, which then needs to be presented to the governance board, and then the governance board can help make a decision to whether continue the program with obviously the amendments in there or to proceed on terminating the program. So hence B is also incorrect. We'll come back to C in a minute. D is wait until end of the program review to make adjustments. See, end of the program review is primarily on the program closure. The key focus over here is to ensure that we have done everything which is required to close the program and do the lessons learned and other aspects. So it is not focused on making corrections towards the end of the program. Okay, so hence D is also incorrect. Now, this brings us to the correct answer, which is C. Over here, what we are saying is reassess the alignment of current components to new strategy. Okay. Now, components over here, as you would recall, components are projects. They are they are also any program supporting activities, as well as there could be certain other subcomponents or other subprograms within the overall program architecture. Okay. Now, what we are saying over here is just have a look as to whether the current components are still aligned, and wherever it is not, look through how you can actually revise the scope, objectives, okay, wherever you can, and engage, okay, the governance for realignment or transition. Okay, so C hence is the correct answer. Now, one of the questions that I had for the group when we were discussing this was, what if I change this from delivery and I say program planning? Okay, so would our answer still be the same? Okay, to which the answer is still the same. Okay, doesn't matter whether your program strategy changes, or rather, where your organization strategy changes, whether you're in a planning phase or whether you're in a delivery phase, you still have to go ahead and ensure that all of your current components are still aligned in there. Now, a bit of a thought exchange that happened over here was, well, would we know all the components while we are there in the program planning phase? In most of the cases, yes, because see, the moment you talk about program life cycle, it's an iterative phase. So planning is just not done once. It's a continuous iteration. So you will see a lot of iteration going between planning and delivery, planning and delivery, planning and delivery. So at any given point in time, you would know exactly what components are there. And in most of the cases, or as for PMI, your program, or rather your project business case is going to be already finalized, okay, while you're in the planning phase, because that's how you would understand how this particular project maps up to the overall program strategy, and that's how the organizational strategy. Okay, so irrespective whether you're in the plan phase or in the delivery phase, still very, very important for you, okay, to note it over here that you will have to still reassess the alignment of the components. Okay, so please be mindful when you're reading through these things, just don't associate any kind of revision only to program delivery phase. Revision can happen across planning, planning as well as delivery phase. Okay, and the answer that we have is B. You can again pause and read this through. Question 34. Okay, over here, what we are talking about is this is a program to modernize operations, which is very much understood because most of the programs would have an element of modification. And one thing that has happened over here is there is an ambitious statement that is in there in the charter about the deliverables and boundaries. Okay, and primarily, what we are saying is the team interprets these objectives differently, resulting in misaligned activity. Okay, so the team over here, the program team, okay, you can call it the program stakeholders, have a difference in understanding what these objectives are, and that's why the activities are not aligned properly. Now, the question again is coming back over here is how could the program manager have prevented this? Now, this is more of a prevention answer that what could the program manager have done in the past to ensure that this issue wouldn't have happened. Okay, now this is where you will have to kind of understand as to what kind of documents slash plans slash registers that we could put in place to avoid this kind of situation to happen in the future. Okay, let's go bottom to up. Allow each project to define its own scope based on available resources. That's incorrect. Okay, projects have to align to the scope that is coming from the program. Okay, so this is outrightly incorrect. Wait for planning phase to clarify all objectives. Well, this is where you need to understand which phase you are in and what you're kind of coming up with. Now, over here, saying that you're going to wait till all the objectives are clarified, it's incorrect because waiting is not the best way to kind of answer these kind of questions. Now, you might feel that okay, well, you're still somewhere in the planning phase. Let the planning phase complete, and then we'll have the clarity. Not the right thing to do it. Okay, waiting is never going to be the best way to do it. Accept initial ambiguity to allow for innovation. Well, yes, there's always going to be a certain set of ambiguity in there, okay, which may or may not foster innovation. But saying that we are going to accept the ambiguity and move ahead, well, there is a misaligned activity over here, okay? People are confused. So it's going to directly have an impact on the overall program deliverable. So saying that we are going to accept it and move on, again, not the right answer. Okay, so B is also incorrect. Okay, now what's the correct answer? Yes, the correct answer is A. What we are saying over here is we're going to develop a detailed, precise scope statement. Okay, so remember one of the key things around your planning is scope schedule finance. So what we are talking over here as part of scope management, you're going to go ahead and define a detailed scope statement which clearly articulates what's in scope, what's out of scope. Okay, and then what we're going to do is ensure that the stakeholder consensus before initiating planning. Okay, because unless your stakeholders have agreed to what the scope is, there's no point in you going ahead and creating a detailed plan. Now, while we were having this discussion, one of the key things that the group and we discussed was how will this kind of work out, okay, if there is a scheduled misalignment. Okay, now if there is a schedule misalignment, then you'll have to look into the schedule management side of things. Okay, so just have that in mind that if the thought process shifts from scope to schedule, you would also have to shift accordingly. Okay, now coming back on this case, as you can see over here, our key focus is to say what's really gone wrong. Okay, and with this, we can see that, well, people have misunderstood the activity. Now, if you recall, scope management plan, okay, has one more key element that comes out of it, and that's the WBS, okay, the work breakdown structure, which clearly articulates what are the different milestones, what are the key set of high level deliverables that we are going to do. Okay, so hence defining a scope statement, okay, during the project charter, or rather during project chartering, and then further refining it is going to help us kind of misalign, kind of help resolve such kind of misaligned activities in the future. Okay, so hence A is the correct answer. Okay, continuing from where we left on question 34. Now let's move on to question 35. Okay, a healthcare program improves wait times, but increased efficiency led to staff burnout and reduced service quality. So technically what we're looking over here is there was a program which has improved on a key business metric, but then it has also created some problems, okay, which has overall led to reduction in the service quality. Okay, what should the program manager have done differently in benefits management? So the focus over here is primarily around we have we achieved a benefit which the program was expected to achieve. However, it has gone ahead and created a disbenefit, okay, or it has created a negative impact. Okay, now let's go top to down. So, what should the program manager have done differently? Well, okay, focus only on primary benefit wait time. Again, as a key part, focusing on one benefit and ignoring the other, or focusing on benefit and ignoring the risk or ignoring the issue, not the right thing to do. So A is incorrect. B, ignore side effects not tied to the initial objective is pretty much same like A. Okay, incorrect. We'll come back to C in a minute. Assign responsibility for staff well-being to HR alone. Well, the HR could step in and help out, but to to kind of support on the efficiency part, to on the staff burnout part, but HR is not going to be able to help us out on the service quality. Okay, and again, saying that go ahead and assign to HR alone. The moment you see words like these, alone, only, most of the times they are going to be incorrect. So D is also incorrect because it's only looking at partial set of things and not a complete resolution. Okay, so what could have been done differently? Okay, now obviously over here, what we are saying is whenever we talk about benefits management, we have to look at both. Okay, one is the intended and the other one is potential, both the benefits as well as the disbenefits. Okay, so remember, like how you would have stakeholders, both positive as well as negative stakeholders, your particular program may deliver a positive benefit as well as might create certain additional overheads or additional challenges. In this case, disbenefits, okay, which you will have to also kind of manage throughout. Okay, now obviously all these things would have to be kind of recorded in the benefits register, and then you're going to monitor and monitor both throughout the program. And sometimes you would end up doing this even after the program completes in sustainment, so that you ensure that things are kind of delivering and are aligned to the organizational strategy. Now, key aspect over here, right? That your benefits is not always going to be positive. And when we had this discussion with the group, a couple of thoughts and examples that were shared. Okay, one such example was, let's just say there is a road reconstruction that's going to happen, so a road widening exercise that's going to happen, which would also mean the hutments or any buildings which are around the road or just cornering the road, they will have to be demolished. Now, this is a negative impact to these stakeholders whose houses are going to be now remote. And how would we handle those kind of things will also need to be monitored and to be administered and supported. The point in all of this is you need to ensure that your stakeholders are still aligned with the overall program objective. And wherever required, you're going to go ahead and put in the necessary steps in place so that you ensure that the program is still a success. Okay. So with that, yes, the answer C is correct. Okay. And the explanation for that is over here. Okay, moving on to the next one, question 36. So what we are saying over here is high profile stakeholder discovers late in the program. Okay, that a critical feature that they advocated was dropped during the early design. What engagement failure does this reveal? Now, you understand over here, right? There are certain keywords: engagement failure, uh, high profile stakeholder late in the program. That means we are not in the planning phase, we are somewhere in the delivery. Okay, probably it might be late in the delivery as well. Okay, and what we are seeing is what could have been done better in the engagement to avoid this kind of failure. Now let's go top to down. Excessive communication frequency. I This is not a question on frequency of communication. Okay, even if you communicate more, what is the engagement failure over here? Okay, communication is just one part of the engagement. So just saying that excessive communication is going to resolve it, that's incorrect. Over reliance on formal status reports. Now, nowhere over here it says that it had to do anything with not having status reports in place. Probably the status reports were there, but were they did they have those details? Did they not have those details? It's a bit ambiguous. Okay, so B is also incorrect. Sharing too much detail in communications. Now, one of the key things around communications is you'll have to kind of manage your communications basis the engagement required. Okay, so you just can't say that too much or too little communication is enough. So it doesn't work that way. So hence saying that, okay, give too much, too little, it's incorrect. So C is incorrect. Now, next one is failure to include stakeholders in key decision points. Now, this is the correct answer over here, okay? Because what we're saying is it was a key feature. Okay, now had we engaged, okay, with the right stakeholders during the key decision points, we would have identified this critical feature miss much more earlier, okay, than now. Okay, so somewhere in the engagement we have missed that. And then obviously it talks about transparently communicate the scope changes. Okay, because as one of the key things that we need to ensure is, well, there's scope change in there. We miss something and we need to ensure that there is a transparency in communication part of it. Now, understand communication is one of the key things around engagement. Okay, do remember when I speak about engagement, it's purely around building relationships, and communication is around for continue to maintain those relationships. What are the communication expectations that we have to deliver upon? Okay, so hence D is the correct answer. Moving on to question 37. Okay, mid-program, a new technology offers potentially superior performance. Okay, so it seems like we have identified an opportunity over here. Okay, but incorporating it would require significant replanning and contract changes. So there is a challenge over here that you simply can't just take this over. Okay, there could be significant replanning. Now, replanning, one of the key things around program management is around window of opportunity. Now, if you're going to do replanning, there are going to be contract changes. You'll have to see, are you still within the window of opportunity or are you going to lose it? Okay, and next is how should the program manager approach the adaptive change within the life cycle? Okay, so it's mid-program, so definitely you're not in the planning phase. So you're already towards somewhere in the delivery side. Okay, now let's go answer A. Let's go top to down. Answer A. So answer A says that rigidly adhere to original plans, preventing modification. Okay, well, one of the key things around program is to ensure that you maintain flexibility, okay, to capture the strategic changes as well as any new opportunities or risks that kind of come through. Okay, so saying that you're going to rigidly adhere to them and not do anything, that's completely wrong. It's not going to work that way. Okay, saying conduct cost benefit and risk analysis involving stakeholders and apply formal change control to determine whether adaptive integration aligns with program goals. This is the correct answer because it's kind of covering everything in there. It's saying conduct the cost benefit analysis, check what the stakeholders are doing, okay, involve them, okay, and whatever the formal change control process is there for the program, follow all of that to ensure that everything that you're making change right now completely aligns with the program goals. See, immediately switch technologies without consultation, that's wrong. Whenever you see anything which says immediately, okay, stop. that most of the times that's not going to be the right answer because, again, right, it warrants us to have a deeper understanding before we jump into the action point of it. Wait until post implementation before adopting new innovations, well, then you're going to miss out on the opportunity. Okay, this might be something that might really help you shape up the entire program. Saying that you're going to wait, again, not the right thing, so you're going to cross that out. Okay, so which brings us to B as the correct answer. And as you can see over here, uh, these are the standard steps that you're going to do. So even before your exam, as part of revisions, you can kind of go through these questions. Question 38. Okay, over here we are saying upon closeout. Okay, so remember the moment you see the word closeout, you are hinting towards program closure. Okay, according to PMI text, closeout is a word that's closely associated to program closure. Several stakeholders have expressed dissatisfaction with program outcome. Stakeholder seems to be unhappy in here. Okay, they feel their needs were not met. What does this suggest about program's closure process? Okay, well, you can see closeout, program's closure. So we are roughly there. Now, we are saying that, well, stakeholders are unhappy with it, okay, and they're saying several stakeholders are unhappy, and we just need to now figure out, okay, what should the program manager do, okay, and how can he handle this program closure process? Let's go bottom to up. Programs end when budgets are exhausted. Well, yes and no. Remember, programs are very long. There might be situations wherein you might still have the budget, but the organization strategy would have changed so much that there's no point in you even spending money on the program anymore. So saying that just because your budget is exhausted, you're going to stop the program, incorrect. Scratch that out. Stakeholder feedback is irrelevant after closure. Not necessary, but again, right? You're somewhere in the closeout process. Stakeholder feedback is always going to be important. In fact, that's one of the key things which you would do during the program closure process. So saying that you're going to ignore stakeholder feedback, that's wrong. Closure should be based on only on technical deliverable completion. That's wrong as well. Because imagine this, right? Your program is purely focused on delivering value. Had this been a project, you could have said that, okay, well, the project asked me to deliver this technology and I've delivered it and I've delivered it successfully and I'm moving on. Maybe correct. Again, I wouldn't say that it's entirely a correct answer, but just be mindful, right? The moment you think about programs are more towards benefits and value and strategic allocation, by the way. So if you see anything like this saying that, okay, do the closure because you delivered what you were supposed to deliver, not the right thing. You have to deliver the benefits, you have to deliver the value, not just the technology. Okay. And with that brings us to the correct answer. That's A. Effective closure must incorporate stakeholder approval. Yes, that's part of a closure procedures. Lessons learned. Yes, lessons learned. Okay, now this was one of the key things that we discussed. Lessons learned is a continuous exercise throughout the program. Okay, so it's not just done towards the end of it. So throughout the exercise, and one of the key things that happened during the closure part of it, this is where you're summarizing all the lessons learned that you have got so far, and then you're taking further stakeholder feedback, and to some extent there are approvals as well, so that you can now lock in the lessons learned and get that archived in the PMIS or any kind of archival procedures that the organization might have. Okay. Now, with this, one key question came in is when it comes down to a project. Okay, this was an exchange with the team. When you're talking about a project, when would you do the project lessons learned? Okay, the project lessons learned have to finish within the delivery phase. Okay, of the program delivery phase. Okay, so whenever you start, whenever you end, it's between those two phases, or rather between the program delivery phase, your project initiation and your project closure, you have to ensure all of your project lessons learned are done. Okay, and the reason for that is, imagine if you got a program which is like 10-year old, and during the 10 years in overall size, and you say that your first project within that program finishes on the first year. Okay, so would that make sense that we wait till 10 years of the program and take down the project lessons learned at the end of the program? Just doesn't make sense. Okay. because you're going to lose people, you're going to lose the knowledge. So hence, it's quite important that you do it continuously. And for projects, you will have to do it within the program delivery phase itself. So hence, answer A is correct. Question 39. Data inconsistencies and reporting errors proliferate during large multi-phase program. What governance tool? Okay, now this is the first time you're seeing the word governance tool on here. Can address this. Okay, let's go bottom two up. Periodic verbal updates only. Uh, Periodic verbal updates, it might be more on the communication part of it, but saying that that's a governance tool, that's incorrect. It's more on communication rather than governance. Deference to individual project manager reporting formats. Well, one of the key things around program management is to kind of integrate the projects, their reporting formats, and everything that happens, right? So saying that put this responsibility on the project manager and let the project manager handle it, not the right way to do it, because then that's not how programs work. So hence, C is incorrect. B, reliance on ad hoc project level spreadsheets. Again, your governance is much more set in time. So you're going to do it at phase gate reviews. It's going to be much more frequent as compared to doing it on an ad hoc basis. Okay, ad hoc basis also, remember, it's going to be putting you more on a reactive way rather than a proactive way. Okay, so saying that do it on an ad hoc basis and use the project level spreadsheets, not the right thing. It's just not a complete answer. Okay, A, yes, that's a correct one, but let's understand why it is. Program Management Information System, PMIS. Okay, now when we started having the discussion with the group, one of the key things that we spoke about PMIS is this is the infrastructure that is made specifically for the program. Okay, now for certain organizations, you might already have an enterprise level tool, which you might kind of create a section in that, which you could use it for the program. But think it from this perspective that this is the platform, okay, which is used for capturing information and in most of the cases sharing information as well. Okay, so what we are saying over here is PMIS, okay, integrating data, standardizing processes, and reporting across all components. So PMIS plays two roles. One is collating the data, and the other one is reporting the data. Okay, so over here, what we are saying is see it from perspective of a tool, and PMIS gets called it as a tool. Okay, so that's your correct answer. You can pause it and have a read. Let's go to the last question for the day. An international development program operates in multiple regulatory environments, okay, with complex funding rules and reporting requirements. What is the best way to ensure ongoing compliance and audit success? Okay, answer A, performance compliance reviews only at closure. Too late. Let's say if you got a compliance issue, you would need to actually do a lot more frequent review of it. You just can't wait for a 10-year program to finish. Okay, and on the 10th year, you understand that you actually had a compliance issue on year two. Just incorrect choice in there. We'll come back to B in a minute. Rely solely on external auditors. Well, external auditors do play a critical role, but in most of the organizations, before you engage the external auditors, you're also going to have some kind of quality checks, some kind of internal audits yourself, okay, to ensure that you're much more proactive before you're even releasing something out in production. Okay, so hence relying solely on external auditors, yes, you can rely on external auditors, but saying that they are the only ones who are supposed to find it, that's wrong. Okay, it doesn't work that way. Ignoring compliance. I think this is a no-brainer. Okay, you just can't ignore compliance. Again, it's a heavily regulatory environment. Okay, even let's just say if it wouldn't have said regulatory environment. Okay, and let's say there's this complex. It's just a complex project. Okay, even you ignore the funding rules and reporting requirements. You just say that this is a complex project. Okay, still saying that we're going to ignore compliance, not the right thing. Compliance could be as simple as do we have worker safety? Okay, saying that oh well it's a complex program, we're just going to ignore the compliance, not the right thing to do. Okay, that would completely backfire. So hence ignoring the compliance for speed is again the wrong thing to do, which brings us to the correct answer, which over here is B, where we are saying implement regular governance reviews. Okay, have it in a regular cadence. Also put in an appropriate escalation metrics because it will help us understand that where things are failing, who all we need to kind of approach for escalation. Maintain appropriate documentation because obviously here's in this example, okay, what we're saying is it's highly regulated and it's across multiple regulatory environments. So we better have that. Engage compliance officers throughout the program, okay, so that you're not doing a one-time engagement with them, it's a throughout engagement in there, okay. And then what you're also saying is, well, do conduct your internal audits, okay, before your external reviews. So internally you should be able to proactively identify what's really gone wrong so that then you can work out how best you can do it, okay. So with this we're going to end the questions for today. Now, going forward for next week, I'll try and do few questions around exam content offline. Okay, and I'll try to, basis the group's request, I'll try to go ahead and try to paste those answers very close to each other so that it kind of presents enough challenge and preparation for you for the program. Okay, for the PGMP exam. Sorry. So thanks again for joining me today.